Hello everyone, it's Mark Goodacre here. Welcome to the NT Pod, the podcast all about the New Testament and Christian origins. It's episode 78, and today I am at Little Mount in Chennai, India. I thought I would get back on the road and have another look at one of the important Thomas locations, and I've recorded it like I did with episode 77. I've just recorded thoughts as I've walked around the plot, and so I shall play them in order and then sign off. Hope you enjoy the episode. You can find pictures connected with it in due course on my blog, as you can also for the previous instalment. So today I'm looking for Little Thomas Mount, and it has to be said it was not that easy to find this. I got a car from my hotel and we got stuck in the most appalling traffic, and finally when we got into the vague area we simply could not find the turning for Little Thomas Mount, as it's called. And eventually I just abandoned the cab, got out and walked, and went down a couple of side streets and finally found it. My sat-nav on my phone was saying, "You have arrived," but I couldn't see the church or the Little Mount anywhere. And then I spotted it, there it was, and I'm just standing on the steps at the moment about to head up to what's clearly a kind of round church structure. So Little Mount is in the Chennai region of Chennai, and it's where Thomas himself, St. Thomas, was alleged to have lived a Spartan life in a cave, and a church was built on top of this property, and you can see the church that the Portuguese built here in 1551 AD, rather attractive white frontage with blue lettering. And much more recently, in the 20th century, the large round structure was added to the top of the mount. It already has a lot in common with St. Thomas Mount. For example, the kind of statues that you see behind glass, these colourful statues, not even sure if it's right to call them statues, but with this kind of 3D pictures behind glass are much in evidence here. The shrine isn't just devoted to St. Thomas, but is also the shrine of Our Lady of Health, apparently. So in front of the round church is an impressive structure of kind of plastic. I'm not sure whether they're plastic or not, but artificial rocks with Mary standing at the top and looking out over the church. I've come here on an absolutely beautiful sunny day with white fluffy clouds, and not too much noise up here as well, so you won't hear the beeping, at least at this point, of the cars that we had a lot the other day. And also we're much further away from the airport, so we won't have the sound of planes flying overhead. So I've just been into the chapel, which leads to the cave of St. Thomas. This is the chapel from 1551. Beautiful chapel, very, very cool in there. A bunch of pilgrims praying in there when I went in, quite small, and a big relief of the Virgin Mary at the top of the stairs at the front of the chapel. But going down to the bottom left, you see this cave structure, and there it was. There was the cave of St. Thomas. And unlike St. Thomas Mount the other day, there was actually a little bit of detail here about the Thomas legends, which is exactly what I was hoping to see. And what it says just before you go down into the cave is that this is where Thomas hid in AD 69 when he was trying to get away from being martyred. And when you then proceed down into the cave, which is certainly not for the claustrophobic, you have to bend down quite low to get in there. There is a little shrine to St. Thomas, and there's also someone's drawn a red circle on a particular spot, which I assume is supposed to be the spot where Thomas himself was martyred, and everybody's encouraged to drop a penny in there in his honour. I would love to have recorded something down there, but there are various people hovering around looking a bit anxious whenever I get my phone out to take pictures, so I thought I'd better not risk that. Nevertheless, I did manage to grab a couple of quick pics down there, which I'll upload to the blog later on. A gentleman just came up to me, I was sitting just outside the chapel recording the previous segment, and I really must look a bit worrying to some of these people, because I suppose I sweat a lot and look quite hot, and a guy comes up to me, just the same as someone the other day, and said, "There's free water," pointing me towards the Adoration Chapel, which is next door to the chapel which is above the cave. So I thought that was rather kind. I wonder what on earth he was going to say, but anyway, he wanted to make sure that I had access to some free water so that I could cool off. Either that, or he feels that it's part of their hospitality of some sort. The same gentleman that was keen that I got some water has also just directed me up to see further sights, including a large relief of a passion scene, which seems to have a room all to itself, and it depicts Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, showing the wound in his side, and St. Thomas placing his finger into it. As at St. Thomas Mount, they clearly interpret that tradition in John 20 as John actually placing his finger in Jesus' side. Incidentally, there are planes over the top. Having said that it's not going to be as noisy as St. Thomas Mount, I've had a couple of planes going overhead, so we're obviously not as far from the airport as I thought. Just found St. Thomas's footprint. It's behind a few barriers, and it has a red circle around to show where the footprint was. It's clearly one of the important relics in the place. And a lady who was doing some sweeping and cleaning in the area drew my attention to the footprint so that I could fully appreciate it. Just behind it, there's a statue of St. Thomas, as usual, holding something that says on it, "My Lord, my God." It actually looks like my Lord God, but you have to read it downwards, "My Lord and my God." And just beyond the footprint of St. Thomas, we enter into another small shrine, and we see behind glass a cross made by St. Thomas, cut into the rock, and the legend above it is that between the years of 1554 and 1704, this cross sweated blood several times during the Holy Mass. Just to the right of that, we also have some holy water in a spring that apparently miraculously cures diseases. So this has all sorts of wonderful traditions and legends associated with Thomas, and is absolutely worth a visit. I've just walked out to to overlook the surroundings from the top of Little Mount, and we see all sorts of reliefs of the Passion and Resurrection. So what we're looking at here is fairly elaborate stations of the cross. You can see Jesus at various points, and one of the most remarkable is a fairly large piece which has a couple of elephants next to Jesus and next to the Roman centurions, which is rather nice to see. And also Jesus in this one has a red cloak and a green crown of thorns. Everything in India is wonderfully colourful, and this place is absolutely no exception. So it's pretty impressive. There's a statue of Jesus on the cross with Jesus Nazarenus Rex Judaeorum written on it, and we see three women: Mary Magdalene, Mary the mother of Jesus, and the third Mary, one presumes, standing by the foot of the cross. So should perhaps comment on the round church as well, since it's the most formidable structure here. It reminds me a little bit of the church in Capernaum, which they built over the top of the ancient site. They've obviously done the same thing here in the sense that they've built a round church over the top of the location of Thomas's martyrdom, so that they can remember it. Inside the church itself, it's much more devoted to Mary than it is to Thomas, and the same kind of colourful statues and icons and so on in there, so not much more to comment on that. And I'm probably ready to sign off and start thinking about the next stage of my journey. It occurred to me after having gone up to the shrine that when the gentleman was asking me about water, he might actually have been drawing my attention to the holy water and not suggesting that he had something for me there, but I don't know if that's the case. The lady that showed me around up there asked me for a donation afterwards, which I gave, probably rather a stingy donation of 50 rupees. I wonder whether that is a little bit on the stingy side, but wanted to make sure I got enough for my taxi rides and so on home later on. So that's been my trip to St Thomas Mount. It sounds like the Mass is about to start just behind me in the circular church, and so I think it's probably about time for me to sign off. So thanks for listening to this latest episode of the NT Pod on the Road. I'll be along again soon, I hope, with another episode. You can find me on the web at podacre.blogspot.com, on iTunes, and I can now say again, back on Duke University's iTunes U. As of yesterday, we managed to get the problem fixed. I'm not quite sure how, but somehow we managed to fix it, and the episodes are all back there again. Drop me a line on Facebook or over on the NT Pod website, and I look forward to being with you again soon. Bye-bye.